Hi, today I'm going to talk about the course of San Francisco Marathon, the strategy in picking your course, because there's some variations along the 26-mile route across San Francisco. This is the course map for San Francisco Marathon, and you can see there are four sections with short line next to the dash line. The reason why they have two routes is that the course has too many participants and they have to divide the course into two streets so that it can handle all the traffic going through the city. And today we're going to look into those four variants in the course. The first one is in the Richmond district. You have 26th Avenue, which is the right line, dash line, versus 27th Avenue, which is the left one with the short line. And then I put in two maps with the elevation change. Red means uphill, blue means downhill. So one of the things that pop up with 26th Avenue option is that you go uphill, downhill, and then uphill, downhill. Versus 27th Avenue, you go just a small uphill, then downhill. So by the time you get to mile 13, your legs may be tired after you go uphill from Baker Beach, and you probably don't want to deal with all those uphill, downhill. Like that's not really fun versus a small uphill in 27th Avenue. And then the downside with the 26th Avenue option is that you make two kind of tight turn with only one block before you make another turn. So you don't really have too much time to make those turns. Versus 27th Avenue, at least you only make one turn with a two-block room before you make another turn into Golden Gate Bridge. So out of this, I'll pick 27th Avenue as the winner for variant number one. Variant number two is kind of complicated. That's running through the Heights district after you pass Golden Gate Park. So the first short line option is that you run through the Heights streets before you make multiple turns into Buchanan, Herman, then Guerrero. The dash line option is you make a right onto Scott and then left on Waller and then back on right into Buchanan and then left onto Boyce before you get back to Guerrero. So the short line, you go downhill and then you get to run through the exciting part of the Heights district. The dash line, you run downhill for two blocks and then you have to make a right turn and then left turn before you head to a straightaway on Waller. So you can't lose all the momentum you have with those downhill. And also you're just running through some residential areas. So that's not as exciting as running through the Heights, lower Heights area. Another thing to talk about is the crossover in Market. Market Street is a diagonal street that doesn't conform to the grid pattern in San Francisco. And the course has to cross over Market, so it poses some challenges for the runners. The top option with the red line, you run down Herman. At the bottom of the hill, unfortunately, there's some barrier to prevent traffic from making some random turns that are not allowed. So you have to deal with those. Then you cross over Market with two trackway parallel to Market Street before you cross over to Guerrero. So that's not too bad. That's not too complicated. The one in the bottom option, you run down on Buchanan. And then, unfortunately, you have a bus or tram stop at the bottom of the hill, so that have narrowed the crossing into just 1 or 1.5 lane of traffic. So you need to make a good strategic placement before you head downhill and cross over into Market. And then also there's two trackway coming from the lower left of the picture, and then two more parallel trackway along Market Street, and then they will make some kind of interesting junction in the section. So when you come down the hill, you have the speed, but then you have to deal with the narrow crossing, and then also the tracks, which can trip you over before you cross over Market. And then at the end of Market, you have ended bike lane, so you have additional barrier that will potentially trick you up before you cross over into Du Bois, and then you have to make a turn again into Guerrero. So based on this, I'll pick the top solid line option as a more favorable course for the runner. By this point, you get to mile 20. You probably don't want to deal with all this crazy crossing. Variation number 3, you're at mile 21, you're running through the Mission District. Do you want to pick 16th Street or 15th Street? 15th Street is residential, so there's not much going on. 16th Street is a major street in the Mission District. You get to see the real life of Mission District. So there are lots of things going on. So by the time you get to mile 21, that may keep you going if you are going on 16th Street. So if I have to pick, I would definitely pick 16th Street as my option of the course. And then variation number 4, 16th Street versus 17th Street. The problem with 17th Street is that it's a bike lane, and sometimes you have some random posts along the bike lane just to prevent traffic from getting into the bike lane, and that will pose some challenges. By the time you get to mile 22, you're probably really tired. You probably don't want to deal with any additional barriers. The only upside of 17th Street is that it's more upscale. 16th Street is kind of industrial, so there's not much really going on. But the street is wide. So, but as a runner at this stage of the marathon, I'll definitely pick 16th Street as my choice for the course. So in this presentation, I showed you the 4 variants along the marathon course for the San Francisco Marathon. And after looking at all those, the solid line option is much more superior than the dash line. So maybe when you do the race in the future, you'll get to choose to run on the solid line versus the dash line of the course in the San Francisco Marathon.